You're listening to That Teacher podcast, hosted by me, Alyssa McDonald. I'm that teacher who decided enough was enough and started an online business to fund my own 2-year maternity leave from my teaching job. This journey has been life-changing, bringing me opportunities to lead and grow in ways I never thought possible. Now, I'm on a mission to help other educators, moms, and impact-focused entrepreneurs find ways to build the online business of their dreams so they can have the time freedom and financial freedom they deserve. So grab a cup of coffee and let's bring your wildest dreams to life. If I was starting my business all over in 2024, these are the exact steps I would take. And I have 15 steps for you. Some of them are going to take you just a little bit of time, and some of them will take you a couple of hours, but all of it is meant to set up your business to be really profitable and sustainable over time. And I know we hear the words profitable and sustainable thrown around a lot. What that means to me is you will make the most money you can, profitable, and in the least amount of time over a long period of time. Sustainable. A lot of us approached business by just jumping into something and being completely unsure of what we were doing, listening to a lot of podcasts and going in the free Facebook groups. And we may have ended up building a business that is not profitable and or not sustainable. This is what I want to address on this podcast. If you're starting your business brand new, this is the podcast to listen to. If you've already started your business and you're thinking, man, I wish I could start the whole thing over again, listen to this episode to get a really good feel for the changes you might need to make in the coming year. If you've listened to me at all before, you know that I believe the very worst thing you can do for your business is hit publish on anything, your product, your freebie, your course, whatever, and then just cross your fingers and hope it will sell. Creating your product or your offer is only half the battle. Marketing is the other half of the battle. And we need, in this day and age, in 2024, we need to be on top of our marketing game. But that doesn't mean we need to show up on social every day. That doesn't mean that we need to be constantly spending hours and hours on marketing. It can be simple. To put it this way, I launched my signature course, Teacher Hustle University, a couple of weeks ago. I created a ton of content during the launch. And since the launch, I haven't posted anything. And that's because I needed a break. I needed to go into hermit mode after launch. That's okay because I have a marketing strategy that allows for me to take breaks. I am not constantly showing up because I can't. I'm busy. Half the time I am not dressed and ready and definitely don't want to be in front of a camera. I really have a hard time with showing up on camera all the time. And if you do too, this plan is definitely going to work for you. Let's make sure we have a really solid marketing strategy in place. That's why you're listening to this podcast, already one step ahead. First things first, if you have a product on a marketplace, this would be Teachers Pay Teachers, Etsy, if you use poppd.co for your course, anywhere where your product might be listed amongst other people who are also selling similar products. Marketplaces can have huge benefits. You can be on a trusted site where people are already going to search for the products they need and they're going there with their wallets out. That's an amazing advantage. You're likely paying a percentage to be on that marketplace. You're paying a percentage to the marketplace to have space on their marketplace. That's great as long as you're seeing the upsides of the marketplace. But if you just put your product on that marketplace, cross your fingers and hope it sells without doing any of your own marketing, in 2024, that's likely not going to work. Or you might make a few sales, but not make consistent sales or not make enough sales. That's why we want to really make sure that we have both optimized our listing and that we drive our own traffic to that listing or to the listing on our own website if we want to cut out the percentage that we're paying a marketplace. So let's first talk about optimizing your listing for search. Doesn't matter whether you're on TPT or Etsy or any other marketplace, you just need to think about what is my customer, my potential customer, going to type into the search bar when they come to this website. Try to put yourself in their shoes. If you can, interview a few teachers in your niche and find out what are some of the search terms they're using to find the products they need. Actually go on the site and do the search as if you are your customer. Look at the results, analyze the results, look at the titles, look at the first 2 to 3 lines of the description. What keywords are they using? We're not going to copy that exactly, but we're going to use it as inspiration for our own listing, and we're going to take our listing up a notch from the ones that are ranking at the top. You can use ChatGPT to your advantage. This is one of my favorite ChatGPT prompts to use. Let me read it to you. You're going to type into ChatGPT, "This is a description for a Teachers Pay Teachers product. First, tell me what keywords are being targeted. Next, tell me what is missing from the description. If I were creating a similar product, what could I add to make it different and better?" For an example, I used the Podcast Project full PBL unit for podcasting. I create products on TPT around podcasting, and this is another one that looks really great. It's by Spark Creativity. If you're listening, your product looks amazing. And I don't keep up with my TPT store, so I'm not actually going to be creating this other product. I chose her description because my own descriptions in my own store really aren't great. I need to go back and update them. So I wanted to use her description because it's much better and probably includes more. ChatGPT told me the keywords she's targeting are podcast project, PBL unit, student podcasting, and then a bunch of other ones that are not relevant. If I were creating my own listing, then I would possibly try to target those keywords. But for me, PBL unit wouldn't make sense. I do like podcast project and student podcasting. I had not thought of those keywords actually, so I'm going to add them to my list. Then ChatGPT tells me what's missing from the description or considerations for improvement. It talks about adding clear learning objectives, talking about differentiation and how things can be adapted for different learning styles. It gives me the idea to put in tech troubleshooting tips, strategies for student engagement, additional resources that could be added to something like this, like extensions for teachers who want to take the project further, or examples of student work. I love these suggestions, and it's really inspiring for me as I think about how to put my own twist on a podcasting project. It doesn't mean that I am going to create the same product or that I'm even going to make something similar. It's just meant to give me some inspiration as I sit down to think about how can I be different than what's already ranking. We were talking about sort of the outside of your marketplace description there with the title and the 2 to 3 lines of description that come first. That's shown when someone searches. But we also need to think about the inside of your product listing. Once you get a click through, then what do people see? And this is where you can really enhance that description. I would love for you to also consider enhancing your previews. Instead of sitting down and creating a brand new product, dust off an old one and optimize it. You can see a lot of return just based on these optimizations. I have a student inside Teacher Hustle University who had a really tough year last year in life and wasn't able to attend to her business the way that she was in years prior. But she had been inside Teacher Hustle University. She had been working really hard on her titles, her keywords within her descriptions, strengthening her descriptions and her previews, really just optimizing her marketplace listings. And during the year that she was unable to attend to her business, she actually doubled her income from the year prior without putting any extra marketing effort in, which is amazing. This work can be tedious, but it does pay off. Take some time this week, dust off some old products, see if you can get them ranking. They're already there. They're already probably great products. We just need to make sure that they're showing up in search, and when someone clicks on them, that they're really seeing what's included. They get a peek behind the curtain. They understand how they can use it in their own classroom. What are some examples? What are some reviews? We really want to show people what it will look like if they click that buy button, especially because we have all purchased something from a marketplace before where when we got to the other side, when we went to download, it was not good or not what we were expecting. Because there are those trust issues there that we have to overcome, we want to show as much as we can inside those descriptions to increase the conversions. That brings me to another point that I am going to mention later on in the podcast, but I want to talk about also understanding your conversion rates and your views, looking at those within the marketplace, and if you have something outside of a marketplace, how do we understand where we need to improve these listings? I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. If I were starting my business over in 2024, one thing I would do would be to collect feedback before I put a ton of work in. If you're a course creator, this is really easy. You can launch your course or a smaller version of your course to a beta group of users. Don't pre-record anything, just teach it live and get their feedback. If you are a TPT seller or you have digital products in some format, you could create just a shell or an outline of what you're thinking of creating and give it to a few people for free to ask for feedback. If you're in Teacher House University, we have Teamwork Tuesdays. Drop your outline, drop your ideas, just like the minimum version of those ideas. Don't worry about graphics and clip art and all of that. The minimum version of your ideas, gather feedback ASAP, validate your idea, and then create. There's no sense in putting a ton of time into creating a whole bunch of stuff, which can take hours of time, when we don't actually know if this is something people will want or if it will be effective. Collect feedback first would be something I would do if I were starting my business now. I would also always respond to feedback. This is something in my own TPT store I haven't touched in years because I've been doing other things, but there are people leaving reviews. There are people asking questions. I do try to answer the questions when I can, but this is all wonderful feedback that you can use. You should respond to it. Thank you for leaving feedback. I appreciate this. If they're making a suggestion, ask them to follow you so that they can keep up when you make the updates. Do think about making those changes. You can't please everybody. You don't need to make every change that they suggest, but it's great if you hear a suggestion over and over to consider adding that to your product and then updating everybody that's been changed. If you are a course creator, there's two sort of ways to collect feedback. One is you're going to get people who are just raving about you. They're just giving you reviews. That's amazing, but that's not really feedback. Feedback is giving them a survey, asking them specific questions to find out what was the most helpful, what was the one reason that they purchased your product. This is all information that can inform our decision about what to create next, and it's just a really smart, savvy business move. The next thing I would do if I was starting my business over in 2024, the first thing I would do when I sat down to create my marketing strategy would be to create long form content. Once I've got those products done, I've got those listings or sales pages or opt-in pages optimized, I'm going to create long form content. Why? Because it lives on. And I, again, want to create a business that's profitable and also sustainable, which means I want to put in some work now and I want it to pay off over time, even when I'm having a tough year like that THU member I mentioned earlier. Long form content can take the form of a blog, a YouTube channel, or a podcast. They all work a bit differently, but think about your preferences. Would you rather write, or would you rather create video, or would you rather record yourself talking? You can certainly do all three. You don't have to do all three. And certainly from the beginning, I wouldn't do all three. If I were starting in 2024, I would create a blog or a YouTube channel first. I would actually wait on the podcast. Podcast is more of a community building strategy and not as great for search engine optimization, which is what we're going for here. We are creating long form content with the hope that we will rank on Google for some of the topics we cover. We want to be on that Google search on that first page so that our ideal customers can find us and then sort of fall into our world, purchase from us, download our freebie, listen to our podcast. All of that community building strategy can happen within, but we want a way for them to find us that has a very long shelf life. In other words, your blog posts, your YouTube videos, they're always going to be there. Mine still show up in search, and I made them in 2019. You might be tempted to jump in and make an Instagram page first because it seems like that's what everybody else is doing, but I would actually create an Instagram page last if I were creating an online business in 2024, if I even had one at all. I'll talk more about that in a minute. We've got the long form content. What do I write, or what do I make a YouTube video on? How do I know what kinds of content to create? This is all based on your content pillars. Content pillars are really the categories of stuff that you like to show up and talk about or teach on having to do with your niche. One way you can come to your content pillars is just to take out a bunch of sticky notes, or you could do this on a Google Doc or wherever makes sense for you. Jot down all the ideas or all the topics that you like to talk about. If you could start with frequently asked questions, things that people are always asking you about. You could start with going into a Facebook group and seeing what people are complaining about. That's how my business started. I was going in the free Facebook groups for TPT sellers and seeing all this misinformation being thrown around about marketing. And I thought, I have to start talking about marketing to save people time and get their businesses making money. And that's how I got my inspiration. And then start to group those into categories and see if you can identify 2 or 3 categories. And these are your content pillars. They're important because they're going to be the foundation of all the content you create in your marketing. Everything will always tie back to a content. In my business, my content pillars are course creation, email marketing, and content marketing. I love to talk about how to create an online course. I love to talk about email marketing, sequencing, automation strategies, and then content marketing strategies in general, how to build a funnel and all of that. Those are really the 3 things I show up and talk about no matter where I am. This podcast episode actually started out as a Cornerstone blog post. Cornerstone posts are something I would definitely do if I were starting a business in 2024. These are the blog posts or YouTube videos that go in depth, and I would love for you to have one in each content pillar. This is the strategy I teach inside Teacher Hustle University. 1 Cornerstone post or YouTube video for each pillar. What this is doing is going in depth on a topic. This is my in-depth guide on how to start a business in 2024. The purpose here is to be the best blog post or YouTube video out there on your particular topic. If you are the best, most in-depth blog post writer or YouTube video creator on that topic, you will naturally get pushed up in the Google search because Google will recognize that this is a high quality article, especially if viewers are spending a lot of time on it. They're staying on the page and actually reading through or watching. It's going to tend to rank. Having at least one for each content pillar is great. And then of course, great business strategy is to make sure that you have a product or a freebie that you're linking to for each one of those content pillars. If I were starting a business from scratch, I would just pick one content pillar, make sure I have a cornerstone post, a freebie, and a product for that one pillar. That's your one funnel that you're concentrating on. Again, this is the way I teach it in Teacher Hustle University. Build one funnel and then build on top of that. Rather than the typical advice, which is pick a platform, get really good at that platform, then pick another platform. I want you to make a nice strategic combination of platforms that actually creates a funnel. Let's talk about that freebie. All right, let's say you're creating a Cornerstone post. I have one on content marketing. I would want to have a freebie related to content marketing or funnel building. I have a freebie that is all about, it's a masterclass on how to build your business. That's what I'm going to be promoting within this podcast, within the blog post. I'll link it in the show notes. That is my freebie. I also have a lower priced product. If there are people that want to dive a little bit deeper, but they're not ready yet to commit to Teacher Hustle University, I have a $17 3-day business planning challenge for teacher business owners that gives you a literal workbook for all of the things that I'm talking about in this podcast episode and the blog post, plus a couple of in-depth workshops and some other templates and things to get you started. It takes the same content from my blog post and just goes a little bit further in depth. It's very easy for me in the blog post to say, hey, if you want to go more in depth, if you want to hear more about this, go grab this low-priced product. The low-priced product helps me qualify my buyers. It makes sure that the people who are on my blog post that are willing to pay for a solution, that I know who those people are, right? That I get them into my world immediately, as quickly as possible. But I also, of course, link to the product that is linked to that content pillar, which is Teacher Hustle University. It's a bit of a bigger commitment, although not much because of the pricing is really doable. It's $37 a month to get started, but it does take some level of like, yes, I'm in. Yes, I want to do this. Great business strategy is to have a freebie, a low price product, and a mid-price product for each of your content pillars, and then you're building your funnel to that. Let's talk about the next step, which is tracking all of this. I myself am not a data queen, right? And I've heard a lot of people in THU have said like, I hate data. I haven't looked at my data in forever. You don't need a complicated Google sheet. You don't need this in-depth analytics report to see success with your marketing strategy. You just need to pay attention to a few numbers in each area. So far, based on what I've talked about, what I want you to do is set a date in your calendar for an analytics party. And I want you to check on your sales. If you're a TPT seller, an Etsy seller, or whether you have your own website, let's look at the number of sales that you did, how many sales you made. Let's look at on your landing pages, how many views did you get, and how many of those views converted. This tells us a lot of information. Of course, the amount of sales just tells us if we are growing in our business. We had an up month, a down month. Do we need to do some additional marketing on those products? Compared to the number of people who purchase tells us what our pricing is like. If you have a lot of low price products, you probably have a lot of people purchasing. What if you added some high price products in there so that you didn't have to get as much volume on the number of people who are buying? If you have products with a lot of views, that's great. That means you did your title and your 2 to 3 line description really well. If you are not getting a lot of views, go work on the outside of that listing or your top of funnel strategy. I'll talk about that in a minute. If your conversions aren't good, this is one I love to play around with because there's so much you can do to make conversions go well. You're going to look at your sales page and make sure that all of the things that are included really help that person envision what is behind the curtain. That's for a sales page, or if you're a marketplace seller, that would be the inside of your listing with the previews and all of that. It could come down to the fact that your previews just don't show what they need to see, or your description or your sales page just doesn't say what they need to hear. We need to understand when we're writing these things that our customers need to know, what does this look like in action? What do I need to do to make this happen? How is it going to solve my problem? And how am I going to feel when that problem is solved? This is all the stuff we want to get at on our sales page. And we need to be just checking back and tweaking. In 2024, the people who are going to grow the fastest, so that we can see how we're doing with the keywords we're targeting fastest, the fastest experimenters, right? When you look back, you are looking back, seeing what worked and what didn't work, and you are adjusting. The faster you can go through that process, the more money you're going to make. Every day that you don't look at your analytics is a day that you don't change your strategy. I'll give you an example. I started running Facebook ads a couple of weeks ago. I honestly have had like a really busy couple of weeks. We're planning for an upcoming vacation to Disney. I'm so excited. And I've been just like everything Disney. I haven't been paying any attention to those Facebook ads. I actually forgot I even posted them. Then I got an email today from Facebook that said you spent $400 on Facebook ads in the past couple of weeks. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I totally forgot I was even running them. I have not checked back on them. And that's not just time I've wasted. That's money I've wasted. Dollars out the door. And I know I haven't been making the sales because I haven't seen them come in. Better bet I'm celebrating every time I see one come in, right? I go back to the Facebook ads and I realize that what I'm saying is probably correct because I'm getting a ton of views at like 3,000 views on the landing page for that particular product. Amazing. I'm getting the reach I was looking for. However, nobody was converting. And to be honest, I don't really know why, but I'm going to experiment with a couple of things and then I'm going to check back a heck of a lot faster. I'm going to check back within a couple of days and see if I've got those conversions. I don't want to spend any time or money doing something that isn't working. And think about how much more money, or if you're not paying for ads, how much more time you'd spend just spinning the wheel doing the same darn thing just because you didn't check back. Make analytics checking so stupid simple for yourself that it's in your calendar. You have, I don't even care if it's just a Google Doc where you're making a little table and each month you're tracking, remember, views, conversions, dollar sales, and number of sales. 4 things to look at. Of course, with your blog, when we add that into your analytics check for your little analytics party, couple of things we want to work on there. We want to set up Google Analytics and Google Search Console. I'll give you another sad story as an example. I think I might have used this on last week's podcast episode, but I'm not sure. I was working for a client who was paying me $100 per blog post to write her posts. I went in to do my keyword research ahead of time to make sure I was, I was doing my regular keyword research like I normally would. I was setting up a little table and Airtable for her with her research. As I was doing the research and I was into Google Search Console, I noticed that her pages weren't being indexed. I definitely did tell you this story. And so like 100 of her blog posts weren't even being touched by Google. She had done all this keyword research. She had been paying people to write her blog posts. All that stuff was out the window because none of it was being ranked by Google. Very simple fix. I linked these in the show notes from last time. I'll link them again. You need to set up Google Search Console, Google Analytics. Make sure you have a sitemap for your site. It's going to take you a few minutes. It sounds more complicated than it is. It just takes a minute. Set it up. Go check it right now. Make sure that the time you're putting into your long form content is actually working. It does take about 6 months for your keywords to actually rank, but look back and adjust if needed. If you can't tell already, I am really passionate about funnel building because I just see so many people spinning their wheels on marketing and just trying to constantly show up and then being exhausted and feeling like they're on a content creation treadmill. And it doesn't have to be that hard. That's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why I teach it in Teacher Elsa University. And I know my members are like, I know, Alyssa, you talk about this stuff all the time over and over. It's because it works. And in 2024, this is what I would do. All right, so we've got our store optimized. We've got our long form content optimized. We've got our content pillars down. Make sure you have a schedule for content creation for this long form content. Set aside a day, a month where you're going to be going ahead and doing like a batch of blog posts or YouTube videos, and you could just do it all in one day. And then those are your content pillar posts for that month. Honestly, you don't even have to do it like 4 times a month. If you just get 4 cornerstone pieces done, then you don't have to do it for another couple of months. That's fine. Just let them work their magic. Every blog post or YouTube video that you put out into the world gets to work its magic the minute you hit publish. It's not about publishing one every week, really. It's about just having really good quality anchor posts that live a long shelf life. So the longer you let them live, the better. If you've got one finished, hit publish because that's when it starts working its magic. Nobody is subscribing to your blog anymore and like looking for your weekly posts. That is the case with podcasts, of course, and some YouTube channels if you like to post regularly. But again, you don't have to. We've got our content creation schedule. Now what do we do next? In 2024, you're going to just laugh when you hear me say this. In 2024, I think the next step should be Pinterest. I know you're like, Alyssa, what? I thought Pinterest like died out over these past couple of years. In my opinion, it did. I was getting sick of getting the same old chicken recipe every time I looked on Pinterest. I started to search on TikTok for answers to questions instead of Pinterest or to get inspiration or whatever. I actually, when I did my ins and outs for 2024, like just a month ago, I said Pinterest was out. I'm officially changing my mind. They're expected to grow 5.1 million users between 2024 and 2028. That's in addition to the 90 million something Pinterest users they already have. And I also saw TikTok, and yes, I'm going to go ahead and cite this one, in the trenches from a high school teacher who said she cannot get her students off of Pinterest. They are making Pinterest boards. And I think that's a really good sign because you know when the youngins pick up a platform, it means we're next, right? I think Pinterest is a great place to look for inspiration. I think teachers are still using it, and I think more teachers will use it in the future along with TikTok. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay. Pinterest is really simple. When you sit down to create your long form content, make it part of your strategy to knock out a few pins when you're done with that blog post. Get into Canva, make some graphics, put a little description on there. You don't need to know every single thing about Pinterest to get started with this. I do suggest you learn more about the platform, what analytics to track and things like that, how to optimize your pins. But for now, just do it. Don't wait until you have all the knowledge. If you're in Teacher Elsa University, you know we have a whole stack on Pinterest. You can certainly dive into that work whenever you're ready, but it's better to just go ahead and do it. Alyssa, what do I post on Pinterest? What do I link to? Do I link to my TPT product? Do I link directly to my course? Do I link to my blog? Do I link to my freebie? I forgot to mention to create a freebie, so let me actually dive into that before I answer your question. Something I would definitely do in 2024, which I have done in every other year, is create a freebie. In 2024, to freshen it up, I might think about creating a seasonal freebie. Maybe I have one freebie for each season of the year, or maybe if you're just dealing with the school year, you have 3 of them, and I would have them, the freebies, be based on trending topics for that season in your niche. I would also have the freebies expire. When you are telling people to grab that freebie, you can say, grab the freebie because it's only going to be available until February 1st. And then I'm going to take it down. This is a really great way to add some urgency to your freebie. It doesn't work as well on something like Pinterest because Pinterest is more evergreen. One way you can deal with this, and I'm getting a little bit into the weeds here, but you could have an evergreen version of that freebie and you could have an expiring version of that freebie. 2 ways to do this. Let's say you're making a Pinterest pin for your seasonal freebie. Instead of the pin driving people to the particular freebie, let's say it's like Christmas, it's a Christmas one. You could have a pin like that, but you could also have a pin that just says seasonal freebies, and it leads to maybe a Google folder where you are pulling in a freebie or taking out a freebie based on the season. Could have one Google folder that has all of the seasonal content in it that doesn't expire and is more evergreen, and one Google folder where it does expire that is not as evergreen. And you could use both of those. I just love the urgency and the freshness of a seasonal freebie. I also think it's great to just take some of your old freebies and update the titles. I know some of you who are listening have lead magnets already sitting around. By the way, if you're listening and you're a first-time business owner, a lead magnet is a freebie where people exchange their name and email address to get that freebie. If you have old lead magnets sitting around, please dust them off. They're perfectly fine, okay? They're still good, even if you made them 3 years ago. I guarantee it. You don't need to go in and make them perfect. Change the title, update the opt-in page, make sure that you get it out to your people, let them know on social media or in your blogs on pins that this is available, and let's just see what the new title does. Let's watch what happens and adjust as needed. Also, we want to go through the just right check on the freebie. It should not give away too much information. It should not give away not enough information. It should be applicable to your audience only, not all audiences. I often use this example of a mistake I made in my TPT business. My TPT freebie for a long time was this like snowman soup printable that I made for Christmas time. It's still on my store. It still gets a ton of downloads, but it doesn't do me any good as a business strategy because any teacher of any grade level could print out the snowman soup, but my TPT store is only geared toward 3rd to 5th grade, maybe 3rd to 7th grade teachers. I don't know if they're printing out snowman soup, but I'm getting a lot of kindergarten teachers from that, right? And I want a freebie that just narrows in on my particular audience. My freebie right now is the Business Pathways for Teacher Business Owners guidebook. This is obviously targets just teacher business owners. It is good information, but it's not everything. It still leaves something to be desired. They still need some additional help, but it gives them enough information that it's like worth their download, and I'm building trust. One time I downloaded not a freebie, but a low-priced paid product from someone I really loved learning from on Instagram. Their low-priced product that I paid like $7 for was fluff. It was nothing. It was an ebook that taught me absolutely nothing. I still love them. I appreciate them, but it made that trust go away. So when I saw one of their higher priced products come available, I was like, nope, I'm not going to invest my money because what if it's fluff? We have to be careful to hit that just right. If you put in too much, people will be overwhelmed. If you put in not enough, they will be underwhelmed. Look for that just right and get feedback and adjust as needed. Why was I telling you about freebies? Because we were talking about Pinterest and should you post to your blog, TPT store, or your freebie? All of the above. It cannot hurt to post a pin that leads directly to your TPT store. It cannot hurt to post a pin that goes directly to your blog. It cannot hurt to do one to your freebie. What you're going to do is watch and adjust, right? I don't hold all the answers for marketing in your business. The data does. Even if we hate data, if we just set that analytics party in our calendar and we just look at a few key metrics, like how many people are clicking over to your TPT store from Pinterest, you can see that on Pinterest. You can see it on Google Analytics. If you're a TPT store owner, you can see it on TPT. What pins are driving the most traffic, and then make more of those. It is far more likely that people will not click away from your pin and that they will just save it. So some ways that you might want to think about creating pins are pins that have more information directly on the pin that lead to the freebie. So you're building that trust right in the pin description, which makes them want to go over to the freebie. In 2024, what social media platform would I use for my business? Ooh, you know what I'm going to say, right? I would use TikTok, hands down. I am not changing my mind on TikTok right now. I'll get back to me in the next couple episodes if I change my mind again. I think for 2024, TikTok is going to win. And here's why. TikTok shows up in Google search. And until Instagram is doing that, I just don't see a way to beat it. If you have only an hour or two a week to spend on creating content for social media, I want you doing it on TikTok. Now, I'm a hypocrite because I have a TikTok account and I don't post anything. Why? I don't like creating short form video unless it's on my Instagram stories, which I love creating content for. I feel like on TikTok, it's a bit judgmental. I have to have my content thought out. I have to be showered and dressed. So I'm going to give you this advice with a total grain of salt because I want TikTok to be a part of my strategy. I have not figured out a good routine. For me, this comes down to understanding myself, and for you, it's going to be the same. For some of you, creating short form video comes so naturally, and TikTok is really easy for you. For a lot of creators, right? They're really good at it. For me, I am awkward. I just say it how it is, right? I can't thinking about what hook to put on and how to say things to get people excited and keep their attention. I just want to tell it like it is. I can't be bothered with all the ins and outs. If you're like me, and that's the case, either just show up and start talking and don't worry about having a hook and having all these things, or create faceless videos. These are a little bit easier to think through because you can batch create them and you can think more through what you're going to say because you're going to use something like a voiceover recording to do it instead of recording your face and talking. A couple examples are preview videos. This is a really easy one. I love this one. You just take your cell phone camera, point it at your computer screen, and preview your product. Showcase what it looks like and what it does and all of that, and you can voice over that recording. Another is a hack video, which is where you talk about a hack, and maybe it's a technology hack, and again, you're just putting your cell phone up to the screen and recording it. Or maybe you are creating 3 tips or 3 hacks for podcasting with students, and one of the hacks is your product. Another video type without your face is just promoting your freebie. Put a graphic of your freebie up and combine it with a funny meme to get people's attention and also draw attention to your freebie. If you can have a link in bio in TikTok where they can simply put their email address in and click the button and it's done, that's better rather than having to do a bunch of multiple clicks to get to your freebie. If you could just make it really easy, they just have to put their email address in even and click a button and it's done. That is best on TikTok. They're likely not going to totally open another website and they don't want to look through a million links. Just make it very, very, very clear what that next step is. But again, because TikTok has great reach, shows up in Google search, has a pretty good search function in the search bar, is being used by a ton of people in 2024 and definitely a ton of teachers. I think that's the place to be. I do still think there's a place for Instagram. Obviously, that's where I show up the most, but I do think it's for a bit of a different purpose. Okay, so Instagram, where does this fit in? To be clear, you don't need to have TikTok and Instagram, and you don't have to have TikTok. That's a suggestion that I'm making if you're working on top of funnel content that leads to your blog, that leads to your products, leads to your freebie. On Instagram, I believe Instagram is best in 2024 for growing your community. Once somebody has gotten into your world, they're in your blog, they're listening to your podcast, they are consuming your content, they're looking at your products, they're buying more than one product from you, Instagram is a place. Yes, you can get a little bit of reach on Instagram with Reels. I find it kind of hit or miss. Where I really focus my time on Instagram is on my stories. I try to post a story every day. I'm not great at it, but I do try. I try to just follow a routine with my stories, which makes it really easy. In the beginning of the day, I try to post a good morning story. I take a picture of me with my coffee or taking the dog for a walk, and I usually put some text on that talks about what I'm going to be doing that day. Really easy one. Then during the day, I try to record one video about a topic I'm thinking about that day. Usually just something that came to my mind, something that came up, a story, whatever, something I'm thinking about related to my topic usually. The third thing that I post on stories is usually what I'm working on or behind the scenes content. I'll just do I'll take my cell phone camera, I'll put it up to my screen and sort of show what I'm working on. I might ask questions and gather feedback right there. And then the last thing I post is usually a survey or a question box, something people can interact with. And then I post memes because I just think they're funny and I love to connect with my audience over funny content. And sometimes I'll close out the night by showing what reality TV show I'm watching that night. And that's just my story routine. And again, that's to build community with your existing followers. And it works really, really well. Of course, with social media, add to your Google Doc for your analytics party and check in on a few things with your social media posts. Reach, how many people are seeing it, and engagement, how many people are clicking the link in your bio or clicking the link in your stories. Anything that's getting high reach and high engagement, we want to create more of that. Again, I don't hold the answers. You've got to test, experiment, and check. The last piece of advice for anybody building a business in 2024, and this is something I wish I did from day one in my business, follow one mentor. I don't know how many times I can say this. Listening to several different podcasts, listening to several different business and marketing coaches, only spins you in circles. And I've seen this with my own clients. I'll be working with somebody and I'm giving them one-on-one marketing advice, great advice. And then they'll write to me and say, I heard on my podcast that I need to be doing XYZ. And it's not part of their marketing strategy and it's not part of what we're doing. And it's actually a distraction from what we're doing, but they have this sense of urgency, this feeling that they must do this because so-and-so said it. I think that it's so much better to dive deep with one mentor than to go and surface level try to do everything that everyone's telling you to do. Everyone's going to tell you something a little bit different. Everyone's marketing strategy is a little bit different. It's about who do you resonate with? Whose strategies do you like? Who do you like to listen to? Who inspires you? Follow that person and listen to every one of their podcast episodes and join their courses and download their freebies and read their blog posts, fall into their world of content and stay consistent with following their advice. I have a couple of OGs in Teacher Hustle University that have listened to every single thing I've said over the almost 5 years that I've had Teacher Hustle University, and they've not listened to many other people at all. I'm not saying that I'm the best, but it's their consistency. And over time, I've watched their businesses grow and flourish. They have some of them hundreds of thousands of followers, opportunities they never could have imagined. They're writing books. They've got courses. They've got digital products. And that growth was 10 times faster because they were focused. Focus on one mentor and then build a community around yourself of like-minded entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship is lonely. The further you go into it and the more you begin to learn, the more lonely you're going to get because the people in your real life probably don't understand what you're doing and probably don't understand your motivations for doing it and can't connect with your need for a creative outlet and all of the other things that come with business. But teacher business owners who are doing the same thing do understand. They understand the dedication, the commitment, the motivation, the excitement, the need to cry, the need to vent, the need to share a win. They understand all of that. And a lot of them can answer your questions or give you feedback, give you ideas, and you can develop some really wonderful friendships. So find a community that you love. I hope it's Teacher Hustle University. We'd love to see you in there. I'd love to see the connections and even in real life meetups that happen from members who have met there. But really, wherever you can find your community, just find it and stick with it. You're going to need it on this journey of business. So congratulations on starting your journey. If you're starting in 2024, you are paving the way for financial freedom. And if you follow the steps in this podcast, you're doing it simply, sustainably, profitably. Is that a word? If you are not just launching your business in 2024 and you're going back to foundations, amazing. You've got this. Focus on your funnels. Do not focus on trying to show up on social media every day. You're going to burn out. Instead, focus on your funnels, build a strategy around them, get inside Teacher Hustle University so we can build them together and I can help you with your strategy along the way. I'll put all the links in the show notes and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to That Teacher Podcast. I have a lot of resources for you in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe to my Monday mixtapes and tune in here to the podcast to learn more business and marketing strategy to help grow your business to the business of your dreams so that you can have the financial wiggle room you've been hoping for. Looking forward to supporting you in your journey.